Good evening from Cambridge, Massachusetts. My name is Robert Reid Pharr, and I'm the editor of Transition magazine and a professor of studies of women, gender, and sexuality, and of African and African American studies here at Harvard University. I'm delighted to be able to welcome you to this very special evening of readings in celebration of the publication of issue 133 of Transition magazine, the climate issue. As many of you know, Transition magazine was started in 1961 by Rajat Neogi, and since 2013, it has been housed at the Hutchins Center at Harvard. I'm especially proud of this issue, however, as it is the first to be published during my tenure as editor. The really key work of getting the issue out and attending to the millions of administrative matters attending the publication of Transition has been done, however, by our managing editor and the team of editors around her. And Tanya Larkin in particular, from whom you will hear in a moment. Moreover, we are very lucky to have a remarkable editorial board that includes incredible individuals, many of whom contributed huge amounts to this issue and who are actively working to build on the strengths of the magazine, several of whom one of whom you'll hear from this evening. I thank all of them here. While I've had your attention, I'd like to encourage you to follow Transition on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram. You can find that information in the chat. Finally, I want to draw your attention to the fact that this year we will inaugurate the Rajat Neogi Memorial Lecture, and that the inaugural lecturer will be the remarkable writer Maurice Kende. We are so proud that she will join us on the campus of Harvard University on April 19th at 6 p.m. at Harvard University's Faculty Club. Please see the chat for more information on this. And again, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. It's so wonderful to have you here this evening. I'm so excited about the readings that are just about to happen. And without further ado, I will turn things over to our managing editor, Tanya Larkin. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tanya Larkin, and I'm the managing editor of Transition, and we are so thrilled to present the climate issue. I have it here in my hand, and it's full of stunning, stunning art that you can probably only see properly if you get a print copy of the magazine. But this is available on Project Muse to the very end of May, if you'd like to see it, the electronic version of it. Ariana Benson, we automatically knew that we wanted to publish her poems, having seen her poems just on Twitter, and they are striking. And I just wanted to read a brief bio of her. She was born in Norfolk, Virginia, and is a graduate of Spelman College. Her poems are published or are forthcoming in Poetry, Copper Nickel, Colorado Review, Indiana Review, Auburn Avenue, where she serves as nonfiction editor, and elsewhere. She is the 2022 Eliza Moore Fellow for Artistic Excellence at the Oak Spring Garden Foundation and the recipient of the 2022 Furious Flower Poetry Prize. I'm sure that these are only a few of the prizes. There are many, many, many more and more prestigious prizes to come. We completely trust in her talent. Through her writing, she strives to fashion vignettes of Blackness that speak to its infinite depth and richness. Please welcome Ariana Benson to the Transition stage. She's going to read a few poems.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for that wonderful, lovely introduction, Tanya. And thank you and Robert and Vasantha for inviting me to be a part of this really, really lovely issue of Transition. I am also holding my issue in my hand. It's gorgeous. I think everybody should have a copy. I was going to say for your coffee table, have a copy because it's just that beautiful. So I'm going to read two of my poems that are in this issue. And then I'm going to end one more that kind of finishes with this whole climate theme. Okay. Self-portrait as oil spill. In the brief still, I appear within a sickening iridescence, my skin muck-pocked like a pollock. Fish bubble up like zits, heads bloated, leaking. Waves of rot waft into the air. The dead sweet eau de parfum of never hatched eggs licks my neck. The smell of sulfuric neglect, of anti-life shriveled on the vine. A duck's tailing V-shaped wake furrows my brow. The hapless bird looks nothing like the downy ones in Dawn commercials, cute and thus worth saving with lathered neon blue savon. Pitiful yet unpitied, once honking bellow, now a choked bark, her sun-bright eyes set into midnight, left leg cuffed by concealed sledge, she spirals. So too do I swim around nothing but myself. I rise to survey the whole of the inlet, now stippled at the edges, surface puckered like chapped lips shedding dried out pigment. Then fingers unfurl like kudzu around my neck, dunking my head, pulling me into a kiss with my own dark simile. Filth warps the red hyacinth buds of my lungs that burn bloody with each futile gasp. My own ecosystem in beta decay, I know now what the drowning see just before they drift stagnant. Nothing but oil, even in the cleanest of seas. Just as stars start to spark in the sky of my dying, the grip relents, satisfied with its vicious baptism. And I can't tell you what was reborn within me, but I am certain of what expired. Everything but the whites of my eyes and teeth. I hear footsteps retreating into horizon behind me and whip my head around, hoping to find the face of the one who has tried to send my being into past tense. My lashes drunk with greasy mascara, I see only shadow. A barge rolls by, and in my frantic waving for help, I catch a glimpse of my own hand, palms black as all that ever was, knuckles sticky with crude guilt. I wipe my face, turn back to the spill in disbelief. What had I expected to see except myself? It's kind of a shame to be reading that poem in the wake of the horrible disaster that's going on right now in East Palestine, and several other environmental disasters that are really located so specifically in marginalized communities in the United States. So I offer these poems as dedication to the climate lives and experiences of the Black and Brown and the poor and those whose voices might not be heard. This is Virginia Beach, High Bun. At this hour, pelicans trail their own shadows over the shore in flight, ghosts of their own futures. Upon landing, talons tip around shells fragmented like fresh-bitten bonbons, smooth outers giving way to gooey silt. The sky a robin's egg with cirrus streak cracks. A lone jellyfish bobs, a melting ice cube in a soured glass of black tea. The breeze smells of taffy sweetened with sand. Silken seaweed catches between toes and plastic six-pack yolks. Cigarette stubs sprout up pale orange, like the underwing of a migrating butterfly, or the slush of a half-eaten creamsicle freeze, or the apricot logo on the putrefying cup in which the treat was served. Littered containers stain tiny scooping fingers blue, make for perfect sandcastle molds. Above a sea of trash-plastered castles reigns one, King Neptune. Bronze fists and gaze, trident prongs chipped like shark teeth that wash aground once in a peach moon. A monarch settles on his crown before being swept up in the wind of late summer sojourn. Swear, I heard them say goodbye. Two royals, flesh and stone, no secret which will survive our creeping winter. And then I'm going to read one more piece that is not in this issue of transition, but is in my forthcoming collection, which will be out this fall with University of Georgia Press. It's called Black Pastoral. And it was awarded the Cave Canem Prize, which is a complete dream of mine and something I still find shock and joy in every time I say it. And this poem came from a kind of curious and intriguing place. So there's this collection of terms that's called the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. And I find them just fascinating, all these words that describe these feelings that we kind of don't have language for, at least in our everyday common diction, right? So this poem is centered around a concept of the word anemoia, which is nostalgia for a time you've never known. And I think a lot of us now, especially when it comes to the climate, spend time longing for a time when the earth was healthier and more flourishing. And sadly, it's a time we haven't yet known, but maybe it's a time we will soon. Thank you, everybody, for listening in advance. And this is Sweetfield Anemoia. There was, at one time, an empty field. I'm sure of it. Or was it a forest so jaded that a vine snake's darting left only glare, like light breaking over rolling grain? No, I know there was a field because I miss it. Its brush languid as a forest slinking into jaded slumber, dragging floor dwellers at its outskirts like a tool train, the land trodden by what once bent its grasses with breath. God, what we could do without yesterday, its forested jaundice, its sepia fog. With the prologue we ourselves sowed, a terrain thick with memory of unbodied lush. Florid, a forest of stalks, weeping, it shone like jade in the easy sun. Yes, there was warmth, sugar cane, a sweetness, or even just its thick simulacra. It whispered like sound in an adjacent forest, an aria unflattened by my failure to prove it real. Believe me, I'm sane, I swear. I remember the pasture, the soft sickle of a new leaf. Each shoot its own forest with only jaybirds and lacebugs coming between stems and their rain. Listen, I know this field. It never held a soul, no tree bark backs, no forest of bowed limbs, no blue jaws, no ambered over sores, only green thoughts. Only the mundane. Thank you.
That was really wonderful. I hope everyone can hear me. My name is Bizet. I am the editorial assistant for Transition Magazine, and I had the wonderful luck of finding Danielle's poems for our climate issue. And I'm very honored to welcome her tonight. And before I even start with my introduction for Danielle, Ariana, I just wanted to say congratulations. That is a huge, huge deal. Round of applause. So tonight we also welcome Danielle Legros Georges, Boston's very own former poet laureate, with a collection of poems that understand, at least for me, the meaning of legacy. And everyone will know what that means in a second, and we'll be able to see. And she has a whole belt, a whole slew of awards under her. But I really just wanted to touch quickly on her poems that were so eye-catching when I read them the first time. And it's a fresh set for us tonight for our themed issue as well, that gracefully encompasses the historic connections of land, wealth, blood, terror, and the world created from it all. Her poems give us everything to think about as we consider the question of climate in the contemporary world. So we are so lucky to have her join us on the transition stage, and we're so lucky to have her printed again as a contributor for transition. So I'll just let you take it away, Danielle.
Thank you, Bizet, for that very lovely introduction. Can you hear me? And thank you, transition editors, for the amazing work you do and for this invitation. And I'm very happy to be sharing space with my sister and fellow poets. I'm completing a book of poems about the young Haitian professionals who moved to the Democratic Republic of the Congo in the 1960s and 1970s, and many of them served as teachers there. And the poems I will read come from this manuscript and take up Congolese context and history. Cobalt, which is a mineral mined in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Word the other and make the world. Name the land maiden, mother, mineral field, blue as the cobalt contained in my hand, blue as a sky full of satellites, radio waves sent down, dark as the mine, dark as a pit head of minerals making possible, dark as the skin of the miner, white as the resource war, white as a colonization, green as the jungle to get there, green as the top of the earth there, massive lung, human lung, called is the jewel of the earth, tantalum from coltan, diamond, gleaming, culled is the copper, orange glow, culled the cobalt, culled the gold of the wrist. This poem treats the historic practices connected to the extraction of rubber by Belgian colonists in Congo. Hands are matter, brown as the bark of wild rubber trees tapped, their latex dripping like milk. Rubber. A colony is a good mother, is a pearl reflecting light from its surface, drawn of internal glow, irritation become luster, a term flushed of origin. Quota is another word to drive the rising magnitude, a drain toward the hexagon. Belgium is to Congo as mouth is to hand, as wealth is to soil. A scandal hangs in history. It trickles rubber from the trees, incisions in the bark, smooth growl of the rainforest, the countless hands required of the harvest. And when the rubber does not come, the hands themselves, piles offered to the free states' gods, black hands, the daughter of the chief's hand, the children of the pauper's hand. Because they had founded a country, rose to claim their state, made Blackness the mouth of freedom. Whites in Congo flee by ferry. And this title is drawn from a New York Times headline in 1960. And the first stanza is the paragraph that followed that headline. Whites in Congo flee by ferry. New York Times, July 9, 1960. Reports of rape and murder by drunken African troops threw whites into a panic in Leopoldville today and sent men, women, and children fleeing in terror for safety. To flee, to feel. Distance signified by an order of consonants. To be aware of someone, of something, through touch, through being touched, to sense a flame, to meet its embers, the matter that remains after and sometimes precedes a fire, to run from a place, a site of danger, when you are the danger, to scurry aboard the ferry, suitcases in hand, to have no words for this. And this is my last poem. It's both its title and a number of lines are drawn from a poem by the great Congolese writer Chikaya Utamsi, his poem entitled Le Ventre, or The Belly. Le Congo, c'est moi. And yet my Congo is there in this hydrolysis, this decomposition and transformation. The right formula will do it. Antidotal, anti-venom. 5 and 2 make 7 the golden number and the end of the world's troubles. Though the waters remain disturbed, fluent in the alkaline language of martyrs' blood, filling with iron the tributaries, through dams, through captured flows, nonetheless bearing above the algae that very name, serving as key to every open mouth, to the broad dazzle of the coral. Le Congo, c'est moi, right savior and poet, right both hands of one body, c'est Lingala, Swahili, Kituba, Chiluba, Mashi, Mongo, Kilega, Tetela, Chokwe, Sebudza, Mbandi, Lendu, Mangbetu, Yombe, Nande, Mbaka, Zande, Lubara, Se Komo, Se Kinyarwanda, and Inubil. I place your name beneath a flower. Beneath what flower? On what stone? In which hand? In what night? Thank you.
Tanya, you're on mute. 1 second.
Thanks. I was trying to spotlight myself, but I'm having a hard time doing it. And in any case, Thank you so much, Danielle. Those are such powerful poetic investigations of legacy, as Bizet said, a legacy of colonialism and terror. And we can't wait to see a whole book of them, of those investigations. Right now, I'd like to introduce Joseph Ndukwu. His poems really struck us with their tenderness and their deliberation, and it's with those sorts of tools that he's able to invent some really, really surprising images that are especially resonant. So just a brief introduction to Joseph. He's a writer and he's an editor, and his work has been published in Guernica, The Prairie Schooner, Off Assignment, and elsewhere. He lives in Lagos, and he's joining us from Lagos, where it's 1 a.m. So thank you so much, Joseph, for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tanya, for having me. It's an honor to be here. So my surname is pronounced, I know it's a hard one, but I think it's important that we pronounce it right, because sometimes if you pronounce the name wrong here, it means something else entirely. So it's pronounced Ndukwu. It means great pupil. So yes, so I have 2 poems in the climate issue, and I don't think I'll be reading any more than that. It was a hectic day for me here. We're having serious crises with our banks and getting money and getting around. So it's hell in Nigeria right now, trust me. So I wasn't able to do anything much. So I'll just read the 2 poems I have here, and then we'll go, the other people can read. But before I read it, I'd just like to say something that the poems basically are trying to interrogate, or should I say, abide in a tender space between human beings and Earth. And I mean Earth in the broader sense, from weather to animals to plants, and how that kind of tenderness can be something that holds us, something that sustains us, and sometimes something that we are not very faithful to as individuals, as people, and that's what looking at the gardener is talking about, and in some ways circles of unequal diameter. So it's about self and Earth. And so I'm not thinking about large corporations necessarily, but about how individually we live with the Earth. So looking at the gardener, the Earth was black on our hands. The winds of April were black on our hands. Gardening is a way of harvesting the weather. Look at you in the dark shrubbery, in your oversized rubber boots. Look how you nip the aphids, careful and determined, like a man making the most of his cruelty. It's what gardening teaches you, how everything is an exercise in conservation. How do you measure your life in the brief season? In the brief seasons, it takes a vegetable garden to reach harvest. Look at you. Rain is dropping from you, from your ears. Your eyes are large and needle bright, like a night pond. You brush against the leaves, your body taking measurements of itself. How tall have you become in your green overcoat? What kind of green are you in your garden? Circles of unequal diameter. I am walking towards a wire fence, holding myself in one hand very earnestly. The azaleas are shaking, and it seems it is going to rain. The sky is so watery it sticks against my chest. When I was a boy of 4, I built an odd kind of bicycle, 3 circles of unequal diameter for wheels. One hung perpetually in mid-air, so stubbornly it made me laugh and cry at the same time. My eyes are still smarting. So I take my own hand and go out to comfort the sadness in me and to show my good self how to touch flowers. and to whisper in his ears something I too needed to hear. That they were much like that also, mysteries, like to be touched, but not so much to be plucked. As I said this, he nodded and wiped his eyes. Then we held each other about the shoulders and watched it all sail past before our eyes. Thank you.
Ever so sorry. Thank you so much, Joseph. It is my grand honor to be able to introduce you to Elizabeth Georgis. And in the spirit of saying that I may of pronouncing people's names correctly, I'm going to say, Elizabeth, I'm going to encourage you to correct my pronunciation of your name. And I also want to say right up front that we have so much to thank you for and to be grateful for from you, and that I believe that it is even later where you are, and that you're being an incredible trooper by joining us, and also that the poems that you're going to hear have in fact been translated by her for us. Elizabeth is a professor of art history, theory, and criticism at the Africa Institute in Sharjah, United Arab Emirates. She served as the director of the Institute of Ethiopian Studies, the dean of the College of Performing and Visual Arts, and the director of the Modern Art Museum, Gabriel Christos Desta Center at Addis Ababa University. She is, of course, a member of the editorial board of Transition Magazine, for which we are quite grateful. She is also a member of the editorial board of the Northeast African Studies Journal and the Ethiopian Journal of Social Science and Humanities. She is an advisory editorial board member for the Journal of Critical African Studies, Kalaloo Art, and a contributing editor for comparative studies of South Asia art and the Middle East. She's been a distinguished visiting scholar at Brown University, a visiting professor at the Academy of Fine Art at Vienna, a fellow at the Rockefeller Bellagio Center, a research fellow program in Italy. Our book, Modernist Art in Ethiopia, is the first comprehensive monographic study of Ethiopian visual modernism within a broader social and intellectual history. And she is a remarkable and generous human being. I'm so glad to be able to introduce her to you.
Wow, that's a great introduction, Robert. Thank you so much. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Tanya, for encouraging me to translate these poems. And I'm really honored to be a board member for Transition. It's a beautiful journal that I've always liked. And now to participate in it, it's really great. Anyway, so thank you. And these translate, I think I'm going to read it both in Amharic and English, the Amharic version, how it sounds, and then I'll just do the English too, so you have to bear with me. The first one I'm going to do is the poem called Kaksum Chafak Madda, or a bucket on the top of the obelisk of Aksum. They're both poems are based on the famine of Ethiopia, the 1984 famine of Ethiopia, written by two renowned poets, both passed away. This particular one is by a literary scholar, Dabewe Saifu, and it's a very widely read poem. I haven't seen any translation of it in English, so this will be great for English-speaking people. So it centers, just to give you a context on it, centers on the province of Tigray, one of the epicenters of the famine. Dabewe Saifu, he illustrates memories of history and collective consciousness, and he bases the poem on an old saying that in times of harvest, farmers send containers to other provinces seeking either food or harvest-related materials. Tigray is the home, as most of you know, the home of the famed Aksum obelisk. It starts from Aksum and going to all the provinces, begging for food in a container. So I'll start the Amharic. It's called Kaksum Chafak Madda by Dabewe Saifu. Tigray laka welo ga bedroኝ ብሎ አንድ ቁና ጤፍ ወሎም አፈረና የለኝም ማለቱን ባህሉን መጭለፍ ኦሌውን መንጠፍ ላከ ወደ ሸዋ ምናልባት ቢሰጠው ለሰው የሚተርፍ ሸዋም ማፈረና የለኝም ማለቱን ወደ ሐረር ዞረ። ሐረር መልሶ ባሌን አተኮረ። ባሌም ወደ አርሲ፣ አርሲ ሲዳሞን፣ ሲዳሞም ተክዞ ግን የለኝም ብልሽ ማን ያምነኛል ብሎ ወደ ጋሞ ላከ አቅማዳ ጠቅሎ። ጋሞን ብርድ መታው ሐዘን ገባውና የራሱ ምንዳቤ የግል ስቂቱን ችሎት በጥሞና በጋቢ ጀቡኖ የልቡን ጠባሳ ሲኖር እንደደህና ዛሬ የወንድሙን የእርዳኛ ቤቱታ መስማት አልቻለና አውቶና ወርዶ ላከ ወደ ከፋ እጅግ አስተዛዝኖ ሀፍረት ያድነኛል ከራብ ያወጣኛል ሲል በአያሌው አምኖ ከፋ እንደደረሰው በድንገት አቁማዳው በነፍሱ አይታ ሐራራው ተሰማው የስጋው ድንፋታ ብልሃት አዣጋ ቆይቶ የተስፋ ጠልቀዳ ሲልክ ኢሉባቦር አበድረኝ ብሎ እህል በአቁማዳ ጭምት ኢሉባቦር ይኖር የነበረ የቤቱን ጉድጓዳ በሞኛ ሞንገላው ቆዳ ውስጥ ወሽቆ ጠየቀ ወለጋን ሀፍረቱን ደብቆ ኩራቱን ዘቅዝቆ ከየት አመጣ ብሎ ወደኔ ላከብኝ እያለ ወለጋ እጅጉን ተደሞ ሄደ ወደ ጎጃም ዛሬን ሁነኝ ብሎ ሊማጸነው ቆሞ ጎጃምም ተሰምቶት ሰቀቀን ሐዘኑ ደረት እየመታ ቅኔ እያወረደ እንባ እያፈሰሰ ወግና ኩራቱን በየቦዳው መሃል እየነሰነሰ አባይን ተሻግሮ ከጎንደር ደረሰ። ፋሲል ላይ ተነጥፎ ጎንደርም ሐዘን ላይ ነበረ ተቀምጦ ተድላ ልጁ ሞቶ ገናን ክንዱን ታጥፎ በዘመን ተድጦ ጎጃም መጣ ሲሉት የዝን የተመኘን ልቡን በታዘበ የኩራት ካባውን ሲጥል ባንጓበበ የወንድሙ መምጣት እቅጩ መንስኤ መሆኑን ሲረዳ ረሃብ አበሳ ጥንትም አልሆነኝም ከእንግዲህ በቃኛል ለይሉኝ ታርሳሳ ብሎ ከኤርትራ እህር ለመበደር በርትቶ ተነሳ። የዘመድ ውጦት ነበርና ጦቱ በሽቶ ሰቀቀኑ ኤርትራ ታመመ ደም ጎረፈ ካይኑ ወደ ትግራይ ላከ መላባገኝ ብሎ ካድራ ደብዳቤ እባክህ ላክልኝ አንድ አቅማዳ እህል ልሞት ነው ተርቤ። ትግራይ አስተውሎ አቅማዳው የራሱ መሆኑን ለይቶ ረሃብ እጣችሁ የሁሉ ወንድሞቼ መሆኑን አካቶ ሐዘኑ አነቀው ትንፋሹ መረረው ትካዝ ሆዱ ገብቶ እኔና ወንድሞቼ ያለበለዘብታ ለራሱ እንዲያወራ የራሱን ሲሞታ እኔና ወንድሞቼ ሁላችን ከባዶ አቅማዳ ነው የሚያቅ ፍቅራችን ይህ ነው አንድነታችን ይህ ነው ባህላችን ዘመን ማዛጋቱ በያንደበታችን ለኋላ ትውልዶች ተረት እንዳይመስል ይብካይ ሮሮ ይጠፍ ስብዕና ይስቆይ አይምሮ እንዳኖረው ያሻኛል ይህንን አቅማዳ ከፍ ካለ ስፍራ መጥቶ እንደ ባንዲራ ምንም ባዶ ቢሆን በውስጡ አይጠፋና የታሪክ አዝመራ ይህንን ተናግሮ ከአክሱም ሐውልት ዘንድ ትግራይ ተጠግቶ አንዴ እየጸለየ አንዴ እየዘመረ ያለ መጠን ተግቶ ጫፉ ላይ ሰቀለው ያን አቅማዳ ወጥቶ። This is the Amharic version. So I know you didn't understand a word of it, but let's go to the English. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Tigray sent an empty bucket to Wallo, longing for death, hoping Wallo could lend, but Wallo was mortified to say they had nothing to give, their culture utterly debased. How could it be, Wallo probed, too miserable to provide? Their soul grieved. They sent the bucket to Showa. Perhaps Showa would spare to lend or bequeath, but Showa too was mortified to say they have nothing to contribute. Showa turned the bucket to Harar, and Harar to Bale, Bale to Arsi, and Arsi to Sidamo, only for Sidamo to say, would they believe if I said I did not have that F they seek? Impotent, Sidamo sent the bucket to Gamo, perturbed. Chills leapt into Gamo, overtaken by grief, draped in their unspoken truth, wrapped in their scar of pretense, burdened by the anguish of their brethren, Gamo distressed, and yearned to be saved from shame and disgrace. They hurled the bucket to Kaffa, too impatient to placate a tormented want for a bucket of death. Once Kaffa received the plea, the tortured wail for a bucket of death, the weeping of the soul, the howl of the flesh, they could no longer amend or hope. Broken and disturbed, they sent the bucket to Ilubabor to borrow F. Timid and contrite, their enigma buried, that pressed their body deep within the skin, shrouded and entrenched, mortified and ashamed, like the rest. Ilubabor besought Wallaga for a bucket of F. How did it come to me, Wallaga bade, when I have nothing to give? Troubled, Wallaga went to Gojam to beg, at best this once, to request a bucket of F. Feeling the anguish, the dreadful longing, Gojam beat their chest in sorrow, tear-stained, and with a pulse of Kene that voiced their unspeakable lament, crossed the Nile to Gondar to supplicate for a bucket of F. Sunken with grief, the shadow of Fasil in the wake, their child Tedla deceased, worn out by time, that folded and twisted his hand, had Gondar railed to hear that their kin Gojam had come to beg for a bucket of F. In unbearable angst, Gondar chewed on hunger and its consuming torment. Let it go, this feeling of what others would say, alas. Gondar rose to entreat Eritrea for a bucket of F. With tears of blood and poor condition, Eritrea fell ill, taken together. Gondar's misery was Eritrea's own. Anguish and agony shared as one. Eritrea sent the bucket to Tigray with a letter. I am dying of hunger. Please send me a bucket of F. Tigray acknowledged the bucket as the container they had sent to their brothers yearning for F, conscious that hunger had become the fate of all, choked with sadness, consumed in sour breath, whelmed in bitter thoughts. Me and my brothers, say Tigray in a solemn voice, as if talking to oneself, to one's private grievance. Me and my brothers, all of us, it's with an empty bucket our love sustains. This is our unity, our story, our way that the ages have fashioned to past generations. This is not a fiction of sorrow, but raw conscience. This empty bucket that I seek to protect, I desire to lift like the splendor of our flag that looms. Empty bucket, perhaps, but harvests of history nonetheless. Rooted and time-honored, praying and chanting, Tigray leaned on Aksum, on the majesty of its peak. It hung an empty bucket on its top. So this is one translation. This is by Deborah Seifu. The next one is a very well-known poet, actually, who is a good friend as well. He passed away 6 years ago, Guy Gavramadin. This one is called How Many Days Does Hunger Last? So I'll read the Amharic again and then the English. ረሃብ ቀጠሮ ይሰጣል ወይስ ቀን ቆጥሮ ይፈጃል? የሆድ ነገር ሆድ ይቆርጣል ይባላል፣ ድሮም ይባላል፣ ይዘለዝላል፣ ይከትፋል። ብቻ እስከሚጨርስ ድረስ ሆድ ለሆድ ጊዜ ይሰጣል። ወተት አንጀት ነጥፎ ሲሳብ፣ ሆድ ዕቃ ደርቆ ሆድ ሲራብ፣ ተሟጦ አንጀት በአንጀት ሲሳብ። የጣር ቀጠሮ ስንት ነው ለሰው ልጅ ሰው ለምንለው፣ ሳይችል ሰጥቶት ለሚያስችለው። ስንት ቀን ነው ስንት ሌት ነው የማዕዱ ወዝ ሳታጥጥ፣ አድባሩ አብዳ ሳትፈረጥጥ፣ ጥንብ ሳይተርፋት የሜዳ አይጥ፣ የቤት ድመት ሳታማምጥ። በእመቤቷ አስከሬን ብካይ፣ እሷም ዋይ አንጀቷም ዋይ ዋይ። ውሻም በጌታው ስጋ ላይ ቸነፈር በጣለው ሲሳይ። አይ ስንት ቀን ትሆን የራብ አዋይ? እስቲ እናንተ ተናገሩ ተርባችሁ የምታውቁ። ከቸነፈር አምልጣችሁ ተርፋችሁ እንደው ሳታልቁ፣ ትንፋሽ ቀርቷችሁ እንደሆን ያስችላችሁ እንደው ጥቂት። ቀጠሮ ይሰጣል እልቂት ስንት መዓልት ስንት ሌሊት፣ ጥም ባንሳው ሳይወርድ በፊት ሳይሞዠርጣችሁ ጥፍሩ። በጣረሞት አከናፍቱ አንዣቦ በመቅሰፍት እግሩ። አንደበት ተርፏችሁ እንደው ሳትነግሩን ከምትቀሩ፣ ካስቻላችሁ ተናገሩ። ኦሽት ሲቃው ሳያጣጥር ሰቀኑን ሳያጋግል፣ እስትንፋስ ስልምልም ሳትል። ቀጠሮ ይሰጣል ራብ ለስንት ቀን ለስንት ያህል? ስንት ሰዓት ነው የራሱ አቅሙ? ለእኔ ቢጤማ ትርጉሙ የሁለት ፊደል ድምፅ ነው ራብ የሚሉት ከነስሙ። እንጂ እኔ ብጤውማ የታውቆት ጠባዩንማ ብቻ ሲነገር ይሰማል። ይህንን ሁለት ፊደል ቃል ቃሉማ ያው በዘልማድ ይነገራል፣ ይለፈፋል፣ ይተረካል፣ ይዘከራል፣ ይደጋገማል፣ ይተቻል እንጂ እንኳን ጠባዩንና የራብ ዕድሜውን የት ያውቃል? እና የምታውቁት ንገሩን፣ እውነት ራብ ስንት ቀን ይፈጃል? በጣር አፋፍ ላይ ያለህ ሰው ራብ እንዴት ነው የሚያዛልቅ? ለስንት ቀን ቀን ይሰጣል አንደበትህን ሳይሸመጥጥ? ሸረሪት በልሳን ላይ የድር ትብትቡን ሳይሰራ፣ ቁራና ቀበሮ በቀን ቀቀይህ ድባብ ሳይደራ፣ እምባንሳ ሊጭር ሳይመጣ ቅንቡር ከጎጆ ጣራ፣ እንደ ፍካሬ ኢየሱስ ቃል በጣር ምጽአትን ሳጠራ፣ አንደበት ካለ ተናገር የምታውቅ የራብን ነገር፣ አስከሬን ከየጥሻው ቀርቶ እንደው ሳይቀረቀር፣ ስንት ደቂቃ ስንት ፋታ ቀጠሮ ስንት ትንፋሽ ነበር፣ ቆሽታሮ ሳይፈረፈር ትናጋ በድርቀት ንዳድ ጉሮሮ ሳይሰነጠር፣ የሆድ ነገር ስንት ያቆያል ቀጠሮ ይሰጣል እልቂት፣ ስንት መዓልት ስንት ሌሊት ስንት ሰዓት ነው ሰቆቃው፣ ስንት ደቂቃ ነው ጭንቁ? እስቲ እናንተ ተናገሩ ተርባችሁ የምታውቁ፣ ስንት ይቆያል ስንት ይዘልቃል? እውነት ራብ ስንት ቀን ይፈጃል? So this is Amharic. Let's go to the English. Okay. Does hunger demand an appointment, scheduled time, or does it simply count days to annihilate, to slaughter, and to decimate? Is it all about the belly that plunders the belly? The saying goes that it crushes, grinds, and it batters, but until it's done, can the belly give itself reprieve? Can it? When the gut extends and twists, when the stomach dries, when the stomach starves, when the gut is hollowed, when the gut is stretched by its own unbridled self, when is then the scheduled time for the last breath? For that human we call human, who is continually given what cannot be fared, but who is frequently endowed to manage how many days and how many nights, when the glow of the table that once stowed food fades away and slowly disappears, when the spirit of the good dashes like a deranged person unhinged, when the field rat could not even find a rotten corpse, and when the house cat could not even purr on the carcass of her mistress. Way for her and way for her own empty gut, the dog surrounds his master's flesh. Aye, how many days is it for the way of hunger? Tell us, those of you who are starved. Did you escape or did you survive? If you have a breath that you have saved, if you can talk, do you know the scheduled time? How many days and how many nights for hunger and its chosen feet to wreck? Can you talk? Before the vultures descend and before the talons viciously attack your body that is in the midst of a journey to the end, if you have saved a bit of breath to express, tell us before it's too late. Tell us if you can, when the final signs of death emerge, when breathing turns into small gasps. Tell us, is there a scheduled time for hunger? For how many days and for how many hours is hunger's endurance? For those like me, the meaning of hunger is conceived in the consonant of two sounds, simply in its name called rab. But would those like me know its nature? This word called rab, which is talked about much, which is heard about much, this consonant of two sounds, habitually hollered and historied, observed, iterated, and critiqued. Do we even know its age, let alone its nature and its kind? So those who know, tell us if you can, how many days does hunger really last? You who are on your last gasp, how long does hunger last? How many days before your tongue is tied, before a spider web entraps your ability to speak, before the fox appears in broad daylight, before the vulture and the termite invade the roof of your hut, just like the word of the Fikare Jesus, before you cry out Armageddon through the shrill sound of your last gasp. If you know about hunger, talk while your voice still lingers and holds. Before the remains of your body is thrown out to a ditch, how many minutes and how many gaps before your throat shatters from being parched? How long does the matter of the belly last? Is there a scheduled time for wreckage? How many nights? How many hours is the distress? And how many minutes the torment? Tell us, those who have starved, how long does it last? How many days does hunger really last? I'm done. You're on mute, Robert. Okay.
Thank you so much. That was really remarkable. Thank you so very much. And I'm very, I should share with the crowd that we had to twist your arm to actually read in the Amharic, which you were insisting that you were not.
I'm glad I did. Yeah, I'm glad I did.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Ariana. Thank you, Joseph. These are just such beautiful and powerful poems. And on this very unseasonable day in February, it was like 60 degrees here, which is very uncommon. Well, it's really like easy to feel kind of happy in the warmth, but there's like a private sorrow that's really nice to investigate here, like it and with your poems. So thank you so much for doing this and coming, and thank you, audience, all of you who have come to hear, and then eventually our YouTube audience as well. If you're interested in buying one of the current issues, the T133 Climate, you can go to transitionmagazine.fas.harvard.edu. You can find that address in the chat. And you can go to current issue. That's also in the chat as well, just the current issue address. And if you scroll through all of that, you can peruse all of the contents, and it will take you to Project Muse, where you can read some. But if you really want to have it in your hand and have especially the artwork in your hand, so you can take your time with that, looking at it, please scroll all the way down the current issue page, and you can purchase an issue right there. You can go to all of the issues and purchase an issue as well from our webpage. Thank you so much for coming.
And please remember to mark your calendars for April 19th for the first Rajat Neoji Memorial Lecture. That's 6 p.m. at the Harvard Faculty Club. And the first memorial lecturer will be none other than Maurice Condé. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful evening.